Thank you for coming. We're going to make some history together today.
It's been almost 15 years since Jobs was at the helm, and his long-term vision could be stalling out, which means, can Tim Cook deliver the same kind of visionary leadership that Jobs had? Let's take a look at their 2023 annual report to see if the business is still on the right track. Let's dive in. You can find this marked up version in our Discord. There'll be a link in the description, but I'll highlight the top things that I found in this video. The first thing I want to talk about is how the business works. The company has two major segments, products and services. Products represents what you'd expect: the iPhone, Mac, iPad, wearables, home and accessories, and then services consists of advertising, Apple Care, cloud services, digital content, and their payment services. I thought it was interesting they call out that most of the company's supplies are available from multiple sources. I actually thought they were largely dependent on China. So it's interesting they say that. As we scroll down, we can get into how the business performed this year. So they report out segments by areas. You can see that their revenue has fallen in the Americas by 4%, which they equate due to lower sales of iPhone and Mac. It dropped 1% in Europe, and then it dropped 7% in Japan, which really surprised me. And that seemed like it was kind of a hit across the board, which consisted of lower sales of iPhone, wearables, home, and accessories. I don't often think about the companies in terms of segments. I like that aspect because it allows me to see if there's new growth initiatives, if they're looking at going into a new market. But in general, I think the real value is in breaking apart the categories and seeing how those interact. And so we can see that iPhone sales are down. Mac sales are very much so down. They're down by 27%. And I think it's because these M series Apple Silicon MacBooks are really freaking good. But you can see that their growth engine is in their services segment. That's the only thing that's positive for the year. And I think it's important to talk about services because you can see that the margins of services are way better than that of product. And that makes sense, right? It costs me significantly less to deliver you a service, but if I'm actually gonna manufacture something physical, then that costs more to do. So they've been investing in their services industry for years with the release of Apple Fitness, their mindfulness apps, and Apple TV, or their Apple TV original programming, but the market's already baked in that services growth. We want to make sure that product growth is coming, and that's going to be under their next generation computing. I'm not sure how much steam their existing suite has left. If we keep scrolling into their consolidated report, we can see how much of a buyback these guys are doing. So in 2023, they repurchased $77 billion of their own stock. 2022, that was $90 billion. And then 2021, that was $85 billion. You know, that's between $250 and $300 billion of their own stock. That means they are doing financial engineering to prop up their stock price. That is a useful thing to do with your additional retained earnings. And that's where looking at the cash flow statement really helps. So you can see their beginning cash amount. They started with $25 billion. And then they take their net income, and you can see how they're using operating activities to reconcile, and then they subtract out what they're doing with investing activities, and then they put in what they're doing with financing activities, and you can see that they are repurchasing common stock at that same amount that I just mentioned. They're paying a dividend, they're paying taxes for issuing equity to executives, and they're repaying some debt. And so you can see that they have added to their even with all those buybacks, they're still adding to their cash position, which is insane. That's the big takeaway, and why the street loves Apple so much is that they are a cash volcano. And it looks like they're going to continue to do that. So in general, this earnings report was okay. They didn't blow the lid off anything. And so the question is, if you assume that services will continue to grow at about the same rate it has for the past 5 years, the only way the company will continue to grow organically and not by just share repurchases is by innovating. And so this whole argument comes down to, what is Apple's ability to innovate into the future? And this is our first glimpse, and I think it is a positive sign. And so if we go and look at their income statement, we can see that their net income is down by about 2%, about 3% this year. And their cash flow, all those share repurchases that we talked about would be captured under this cash flow from financing activities. And we can see that even with as many repurchases as they're doing, their change in cash flow is still positive. They're adding to their cash position. That's incredible. It's been estimated that Apple is looking to sell 600,000 units of the Apple Vision Pro in their first year. If you take an average sale price of around $3,500 and multiply that by 600,000, it's about $2.1 billion in additional revenue. For a company that has close to $383 billion in revenue, that is a drop in the bucket. However, we've seen that this could be a way for them to continue to grow their products division while still stably growing their services division. And if I had to bet, that's probably what Tim Cook's thinking. Overall, this was an okay year for Apple. Really no bombshells were in this report. Apple continues to be an absolute cash cow, and it is a blue chip tech stock for a reason. I do think the linchpin of this entire discussion has to be around either their ability to grow services, which I think will continue to grow at the pace that they have been, or their ability to grow product, which I would have been really concerned about had this not been around. This shows the company is still trying to innovate and taking risks, but the future just isn't certain right now. And so, in sum, Apple is a product perfecter rather than a product pioneer. And I expect that its on-device Gen AI offerings will start to dazzle users. It's not too well reported, but they've purchased 21 AI startups since 2017, which is more than any other tech company. Tim Cook said in a recent interview, "We tend to announce things as they come to market, and that's our MO, and I'd like to stick to that." So they probably have some really impressive things going on in the realm of generative AI, but you won't see them talk about it until they're ready to deliver it. And so there are a few unknowns at Apple at this time. They have a clear path towards growing product by entering new markets or by introducing AI into the next generation of their existing product suite. But until I get a better sense of where they're going on a product standpoint, I'm gonna hold my position. Unless, of course, we see the stock get beat up. Then there's a very good chance I will add to my position. I hope you enjoyed this video. I'd love to hear where you think Apple's going in the future. Please like and subscribe to show us some love. We'll catch you next time.